Okay, everybody, it is Monday.
It is Monday, and it is like soak in the JCal in this episode because it's his last news show. There will be plenty of interviews featuring Jason over the next couple of weeks, but you're off to Japan.
I'm big in Japan.
Love it.
Big 10 days in Japan.
Yeah. Huge.
But so much news. Zuck has copied 2 features. He's doing Twitter verified and he's doing Telegram channels inside of the Meta collection of assets. So Memetic Mark is at it again.
Yep. What do we think? We'll launch a poll in our new Instagram channel and see what you think of Memetic Mark. We're trying out a new, Jason's trying out a new nickname here. We're going to geek out a tiny bit about large language learning models. Talk about Bing's chatbot going off the rails last week. Why this is happening, why it might or might not matter, why it makes the people look worse than the computers in some cases.
Lots to talk about in terms of chat. I was also playing with Quora's new Poe, which is amazing, and Neva. So I have my ranking now. And I will share my ranking shortly, but I am going to rank all of these, maybe in a blog post on my Substack or something. Anyway, then we talk about Stripe. They did not get out to go public. They got a ton of RSUs, restricted stock units they have to deal with. We'll talk about why they may have missed their window to go public and why they need to get this resolved ASAP.
It is going to be a great show.
So stick with us.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by MasterClass. Learn from the world's best minds. Anytime, anywhere, and at your own pace. Get 15% off an annual membership to MasterClass at masterclass.com/startups. Vanta. Compliance and security shouldn't be a deal breaker for startups to win new business. Vanta makes it easy for companies to get a SOC 2 report fast. Twist listeners can get $1,000 off for a limited time at vanta.com/twist. And Contra is a commission-free marketplace for freelancers and independent creators. Get $500 off your first hire at contra.com/twist.
All right, everybody, welcome to Monday. It is President's Day, but we're still producing here. We do the floating holidays at our company.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, can't stop, won't stop. But we do the floating holiday thing. Although, I don't want to get into the whole how difficult it is to be a boss, Molly. In the age of cancel culture, floating holidays, and everybody's got a favorite. You know, like, I don't, did you have St. Pat's and Columbus Day off when you were growing up in
St. Pat's? No, although we would occasionally, as you might imagine, in the heavily concentrated Christianity zone, we would occasionally get Good Friday off.
Yeah, Ash Wednesday.
Good Friday. No St. Patrick's Day, definitely Columbus Day, which I think is still a school holiday, but now it's Indigenous Peoples Day, at least in the Bay Area.
It's really like, it's such
I don't think they call it Columbus Day anywhere. I mean,
oh, yes, they do.
To pull things back. Oh, do they? Wow.
Oh, you haven't been to Hoboken.
Damn.
Oh, no, in New York, there is an entire Sopranos season thread on Columbus Day and Columbus Day parades and everything. When I lived in New York, Columbus Day versus St. Patrick's Day versus the Puerto Rican Day Parade. They didn't have a name for the day. It was just the Puerto Rican Day Parade name. This was like the battle of all battles. Who gets the day off for high school? And we were Severian, so obviously Italians and Irish and Catholics would get the first choice. Right. But things have changed, and there are 20 possible holidays. It
seems like I like were you going to say the British style or I like the European style where they call it a bank holiday, just a bank holiday. They're like, sometimes because people need to rest or whatever, we have 3-day weekends and we call them a bank holiday. And we don't, because like once you attach your feelings to it is when I guess apparently it gets messy.
I would go with that, actually, since we're a finance company primarily. So that would be one way to look at it, is we take the bank holidays. But we chose to take MLK Day and June 19th off. There was big debates about that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I think the Irish and the Catholic got enough days off. Like, I think we could probably spread it around a little bit.
Yes.
It is such a controversial topic. And but we're here. So we're here. We don't care about presidents.
To be fair, it is a bank holiday today, but we're here though.
We're here. There are.
And there's 4, still 5, news happening.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 11 bank holidays. I don't. There's people are in startup companies too. This is becoming, and with remote work, this is becoming like a big. How do we do this going forward? And should labor get to pick which days they take off, or should management, or should it be some combo? And I think that's really what you have to get to bring this back to startups. Is when I was running under 15 person companies, I said, listen, these are the 6 days we're going to take off. You pick the rest of your floating holidays. Pick 4 more. These are your paid time off. There's no delineation between a vacation day, personal day, a sick day, sick child day, whatever day you want to come up with, a mental health day, like all these days got added. I was told by an HR expert, just give people a certain amount of paid time off. You know what happens when you do this? Floating holidays and paid time off? There's some young person who comes in.
Mad at you. Yeah.
And they just get really upset. Oh, you're not taking off Columbus Day, this day, that day. Oh, we don't get sick days. It's like, no, we just don't. You get that time. We don't call it a sick day because you know the game. I'm going to go to Japan. I'm taking 5 days off. And then the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when I'm supposed to be at work, I'm going to magically get sick on Monday, have a personal day Tuesday, and I'm going to get sick again on Wednesday to extend my holiday. That's what you had to do in the 90s, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
You had to pretend that you got sick on the day back from your holiday. Remember those discussions with your boss?
It was a whole dance. Absolutely. It was a whole dance. It is really interesting, though, because it is a thing that you will have to face as a founder once you have employees, once your company gets to a certain size. I mean, there's a point at which when you're a founder, there's none. There is no weekend. There's no holiday. You do not know what day it is. You know, like every time I talk to a founder on a Friday, I'll be like, happy Friday. And they're like, who?
What?
I'm sorry?
Day, time, it's all a blur. Yeah.
Is it a day that ends in Y? Because I'm working. And, and often, so are we. Like, if that's when they can talk, that's when we talk or whatever. But, like, it is a really interesting kind of company formation question. Maybe we should start including that in our, like, accelerator. Or, it sort of is like, are there best practices for how you even decide?
It's like, and then the unlimited thing came up, but then nobody approved anything. I just think to make things easy, standardization is good. Some level of standardization is good so people can know what to expect. And then people want to change it. The other thing I like is when everybody takes time off at the same time. And we had a small company. We'd say, hey, company shut down between these days. These are holidays. Use a couple of vacation days, but we're gonna close the 23rd to the 2nd. Just nobody do email as a group. There's 4 or 5 holidays in there. There's 3 or 4 weekend days, and you got to take 3 days off using your days, your vacation days. And of course, there's always somebody who's like, I want to work those 3 days. I'm like, you want to work New Year's Eve or, the day after Christmas or something? And they're like, yeah, it's not a holiday. I'm like, really? You want to work? You're going to be the only person in Slack and on email. And they're like, yes. But
there's work that doesn't involve Slack and email. Like, you can get a lot done.
Those days are F-off days.
No, those are the best days. Those are like the be creative, make a plan, set your goals for those are like good work days. Because nobody's emailing you. The days when nobody is slacking. You remember when I did my
it depends if you're collaborating or not.
I did that one digital nomad trip or whatever and worked in a place that was not my house, but was not an office where I could talk to people
Palm
or whatever.
Springs, right?
I went to Julian, California. Adorable. It's like high country. It's outside the Anzo Borrega. It's like an hour due east of San Diego, I think.
Got it.
Cool little town. Everything's called the Julian whatever, like the Julian Pie Company and the Julian Automotive.
At it right now.
Anyway,
nice looking,
I could not believe how productive I was. Like, it was astonishing because there was no one to talk to, but also no chores. I mean, I went with my friend, but she was working too. We were in 2 sides of the house, just crushing it.
There's something about changing the location and getting focused. Like, guys, I'm looking forward to my Japan trip. I'm going to Japan tomorrow, everybody. We got an amazing number of episodes.
Holy crap.
I got some really heavy hitters. I'll just give one name.
Ooh.
General Frank Slootman back on the program, and it is nuts. It's nuts.
Guys,
he's just so good.
Jason was 45 seconds late to that interview, and producer Nick was like, he's going to kill me. Please.
He was looking at me funny, and I was like, Jason, please hurry up.
I was like, yeah, you can't keep him waiting.
No, with Slootman, it was great because I'm literally going back through my notes on his book, jumping around the audio book, jumping around other interviews he's done before or after my last interview with him, and looking at my notes. And I just started writing down all these things. And it really inspired me just to think about our own, the two organizations I run, and just operational efficiency, and really just thinking about that energy-based culture. I think the number one thing that I got from him was he's really into keeping the energy level high, keeping people, on a fast pace. And I think that's critically important in, competitive companies, or if you want to be competitive. But
yeah,
speaking about competitive companies,
yeah,
let's get into it.
They listen a lot more when you lose. And so be smart about your delivery and what you're saying, but it can be an extremely important moment in your relationship with your team and the trajectory of your organization.
All right, that was the voice of Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, the winningest coach in NCAA men's basketball history. And his point about leadership mattering more in hard times is so accurate in my experience as well. 2022, 2023, when things are tough, that's when you find out if you're a great business leader or not. And you're going to learn so much from Coach K's new MasterClass. They also, over at MasterClass, have Malcolm Gladwell teaching you writing and to be a better communicator, James Cameron in filmmaking, and so many more legends. This is the best way to learn. I have to say, it's so inspiring to hear from somebody who is a virtuoso, somebody who is a master at their craft. And with MasterClass's unlimited subscription, you got a total no-brainer. And just think, that was 20 seconds of Coach K. What would you learn in 10 minutes, an hour, right? I highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class. And as a Twist listener, you get 15% off an annual membership. Go to masterclass.com/startups now. That's masterclass.com/startups for 15% off MasterClass. Looks like
get
Zuck
into it.
Is he's sharpening the sword, isn't he?
He really is. So Zuck is his latest feature that he is going to copy. And frankly, can I just start by saying what a missed opportunity? Meta is now going to let users pay $12 a month or $15 on iOS for Meta Verified.
Huh.
And the missed opportunity is not to call it Meta Blue, because I'm sorry, if you're going to copy it, Meta Blue sounds so much cooler. It's got some internal alliteration. I love it. But anyway, if you pay for Meta Verified, you will get a blue check mark, which is why I'm saying go ahead and call it that. You will get direct access to customer support, account verification with a government ID that gives you extra impersonation protection. The announcement did not mention any extra data privacy protections, but there's been a lot of speculation, of course, about why Meta might be rolling out a paid product.
Yeah, I had been talking about this for well over a decade, that it would just be the right thing to do to have a subscription-based social network. I had two reasons for this. One is to take away ads if you're not, and being tracked if you're not into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is to build up trust and ownership. When people use their real names, not in all cases, right? We've seen people who use their real names who are horrible human beings.
Yep.
But
turns out some of those
speaking,
rails have come off since the first time you proposed this.
No, it is certainly the case that there are people who have no problem being horrible humans, whatever, a-holes, whatever, D-bags, with their actual real name. That exists. Mm-hmm. But I would say broadly, somebody creating 20 brigadooning bot accounts, that can exist in a social network where people use real names. Now, Facebook's always been real names, but this is real name verified. So this for them is even making it sharper, And since it's opt-in, you don't have to do it. You still have to use your real name on Facebook. Instagram, you don't have to use your real name. You could have a, history and pictures kind of account, I think. But
that's true, yes.
It is interesting how it's an exact copy of what Elon is doing over Twitter. Down to the price difference if you buy it through iOS or you go direct, right?
Right.
That extra $3 or whatever.
But it's just a little more expensive.
Great.
It's interesting for a lot of reasons. One, that I suspect that this is an attempt to test out. So normally I'm going to dispense with being delicate here. Normally, when Zuck copies a feature, it's because that feature is wildly successful, which so far does not seem to have been the case with Twitter Blue in terms of adoption. However, I think what you see here is sort of a double experiment going on because we're at a time when Apple's privacy changes, we know, have cost Meta a lot of money. Yep. So there's probably an attempt going on here to recoup lost revenue as a result of these privacy changes. It's gotten a lot harder to reach customers, and there are questions about the efficacy of ads on the platform. So they're probably looking at the Twitter Blue thing and going like, well, some number signed up. Maybe that will replace some of this lost revenue and or give us a pathway forward, because they also seem to be signaling that they might expect more privacy crackdowns that could hurt the digital ad business. Like, I don't think it's a surprise that this is coming right after the DOJ's Google antitrust announcement.
That's interesting to put those two things together, yeah. And you and producer Rachel talked a little bit about the selling of databases the other week. I wasn't on that episode, but I listened to it, and you were talking about, hey, they were selling like, hey, here's a list of people who are, have depression medications, or this medication or that medication. There's a lot of scrutiny coming, and we tend to trail what happens in the EU. The EU's tightened things up. So it's a new revenue stream. It'll make the service better. And I think what's happening here is, Zuckerberg's never viewed Twitter as competition, really.
Yeah.
They were kind of like, as he called it, the clown car that drove into a diamond mine. I think was his quote.
Interesting. Very different products, right?
Very different products. But even still, there are social networks where people share content with each other. And he is now responding to users and engaging, which obviously is one of Elon's superpowers. And so here you see somebody's like, oh, this should be part of the clear. This person, Mark, is like, this really should just be part of the core product. Users should not have to pay for this. Clearly, it's known by Meta, blah, 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 blah. And Mark Zuckerberg is like, we already provide protections and some support for everyone, but verifying government IDs and providing direct access to customer support for millions or billions of people costs a significant amount of money. Subscription fees will cover this and will also pace how many people sign up, so we'll be able to ensure quality as we scale. And then somebody's challenging, hey, it's $144. But I have not seen Zuck mix it up with like customers. So I think this is a new era where people are going to start taking ownership. I would like to see them take ownership of the fact that young women are suffering from depression, anxiety, feelings of hopelessness at a rate 2x than before social media and phones existed. Yeah. And I think it's time that we have the discussion of what is the appropriate age. I bought my daughter an iWatch this weekend, an Apple Watch, sorry. Not a phone, but she's 13. I got her the watch to start, to do texts so we know where she is because she's going on a field trip, et cetera, and we want to stay in touch. I think we have to discuss what age is the right age for social media. I think the age is 16. Some people might say 13, but I think we should pass legislation, have a thoughtful discussion about all social media being banned until you're 16 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was a huge fight. We've done it with cigarettes. We've done it with alcohol. We do it with voting. Like, we do it with driving.
Yep.
And unquestionably, I think we're starting to see the possibility that there is as much harm here as there is with those products. And we also know that in the case of Meta, for example, it has specifically been designed to addict.
Like, they've all been designed to addict.
They've all been designed.
You put a like button, you put follower
digital
accounts.
Cigarettes.
Yeah.
And every time, and then it's like, you should take that away. And this artificial cottage industry has been built up around getting those likes, and it is without a doubt dangerous. Let's do a little, though. I'm kind of curious about the back of the envelope math about if you imagine that Meta is trying to do this to recoup lost revenue as a result of the privacy changes. Like, if you are, when they were talking about Libra, I wrote, remember briefly, for those who do not recall, Facebook was trying to do a cryptocurrency called Libra. And I wrote a piece that did a little back of the envelope math before I even knew there was a name for it, that pointed out that even like when Facebook rolls out something that is considered a failure, it could still have as much adoption as the US dollar, right? Like, at least in terms of the US, like a tiny number, like 1%, right, would be 300 million users.
When you have over a billion users on these services, small percentages, when you hit hundreds of millions to billions, small percentages equals big money.
Right.
I think what we all realize.
So if they have 3 billion users and Zuck can convert just 1% of those monthly active users
Is
to
that
paying
the number
customers.
they're at? Are they at 3 billion?
Yeah, dude. 2.96 billion just
I thought
on
they were
Facebook.
still at 2.
And then what's on Instagram?
No.
I thought they were at 2 also. And then Nick corrected me earlier this morning.
That's active.
Now, Facebook's monthly active user numbers are always in question. Debate, if you will, by advertisers. However, let's say that that's real. Then they convert
Plus or minus 10%?
Plus or minus 10%. Let's say
Sure.
they convert 1%. They are replacing $360 million a month in extra revenue, or $4.3 billion a year in incremental revenue with basically 100% margins. And when we look back at the amount that they lost as a result of the Apple iOS privacy changes, it was a few $1 billion. Like, it could just be as simple as a 1-to-1. They just put it back.
It could be simple as 1-to-1. They're cutting costs. They're going to get more efficient. They're going to be using more AI to manage the business, more machine learning, right? So there are ways to, if we look at earnings, the profitability of a business, which is ultimately what the stock market and business is valued on, is the profitability. He's cutting people. He says managers is no longer going to happen here. Please quit. I mean, literally challenged the management class at Facebook, not publicly, in a meeting that became public, which means he leaked it or told somebody to leak it.
Yep.
That's how this works, folks. That means he expects to lower costs and increase revenue. And it's going to be the greatest J trade of all time, I think.
Yep.
I'm going to triple my money on that in 2 years. I think it's literally going to go from 95 to 250, 300.
Yeah. And if you've got the metaverse losing $15 billion a quarter and you're like, well, we just put back almost $5 billion a year and just people who are willing to pay.
Pure
And
profit.
again, that's assuming 1% of them do it. And it might be more.
If you're a SaaS or services company that stores customer data in the cloud, you need to be SOC 2 compliant from a third party to close big deals. And you need to use Vanta if you want to do this quickly and easily. Vanta makes it incredibly easy to get and renew your SOC 2. On average, Vanta customers are SOC 2 compliant in just 2 to 4 weeks, compared to 3 to 5 months without Vanta. And they partner with over 24 audit firms who have been trained to file SOC 2 reports directly within Vanta. This is a total no-brainer. A bunch of my portfolio founders have used Vanta and have had amazing experiences. And one more time, if you don't have SOC 2 compliance, you can't close major customers. One major customer that can keep your whole startup alive. That could be the difference between being profitable or losing money. You need to be SOC 2 compliant. And here's the best part. Vanta's going to give you $1,000 off. Get $1,000 off at vanta.com/twist. That's vanta.com/twist for $1,000 off your SOC 2. Well, and this is the first. So what if there's a second layer, which is, hey, for a corporate account across all these.
God.
Well, yeah, I mean, he could, this is, for $12, but okay, let's say he makes it $25 for no ads, privacy, plus you get a bunch of analytic features and some other professional business related features. It's a fairly no-brainer. The LinkedIn professional, I think, is $30 a month. And I didn't know this, but like half the people at Inside were paying for it. Another group of people at launch or salespeople or recruiting people were paying for it. And they're like, yeah, it's only $300 a year. And it, if you have LinkedIn Pro, we can get we can DM people, in-mail, find customers. It pays for itself like in week 1. So I think there's a lot more he could turn over. There could be 3 layers, 4 layers of 4 tiers here. A corporate tier is another one. Why should somebody with, Pepsi or whatever, they should be paying, $10,000 a month for their collective accounts. And you saw that on Twitter. I was, involved in some of the meetings about this with David Sachs and Elon. If you look at my profile, it has an all-in icon next to it. If you look at Mark Andreessen's, it has an A16Z. Now pull up, Nick, if you will, the Twitter handle for All In. I think there's like 5 handles that have this. So this is very early days, but it's been public, so I can talk about it. And what you'll see, nobody's noticed this, but I'll make the announcement here. Make it 3 times bigger. You see it says tweets.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Affiliates, tweets and replies, etc. You see that affiliates? When you click on affiliates, it shows the 4 besties. I don't know why producer Nick didn't get in there, but he should. So now imagine you're the New York Times. Now imagine you're Pepsi. Now imagine you're NYU. Instead of saying affiliates, that's just a word. You're going to be able to change that word. So we could say here, when you go to the NYU, it could say professors. It could say graduate programs, and it could say undergrad resources, whatever. Or it could say undergrads. You go and it's like, here's the different schools we have here. So NYU Stern or, UCLA, whatever, USC, this, that, the other thing, they're going to have that. Now, what is that worth? What is it worth to be able to navigate on the NYU Disney page, whatever, you're on the Star Wars page and you see affiliates or it says characters or it says movies. So now you go to characters and it shows you Ant-Man and Hulk. Then you go to movies, it shows you those. Then it says merch, right? I mean, it's the possibilities here for a social network to then get revenue from direct payments from companies is going to be just next level.
I mean, it is really true if you think about it, that these platforms became the most, you could pay to advertise, but you didn't have to, right? It's almost like an evolution of the creator economy. Like once brands realized, oh, you just set up like a really sassy brand Twitter account and you get free access to all of these people. Or you use Facebook really effectively, even minus ads, and you can, sort of freely promote your thing. This is going to make it sound more loaded than it is, but it reminds me of the old days of net neutrality. Do you remember it was like that guy, Ed Whitaker from
what was that?
SEC Global or whatever? It was like a little AT, and he was like, wait a second, you should be paying me twice. Like you're a business.
Yeah.
And you're using my pipes to reach your customers. You should be paying me for that. And they were like, but we are. And he was like, yeah, but it's a streaming service. You should be paying me more. Anyway, it's sort of this like, I guess it makes sense to eventually be like, if you're going to use Twitter like LinkedIn, why not pay for that? Or incentivize me Twitter or me Facebook to make it a better product.
And this opens up the opportunity where if it's not worth paying for, then the next social network could be free and offer these services for free. So you could have LinkedIn, the scale ones, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram charge for these kind of features. And then some new entrant come along and say, hey, you know what? We're going to make it free. We're going to make it decentralized. It's going to have all these other features. And then you got this other huge opportunity for competition, as we talked about with, Lena Khan and, all that stuff. I think this gets to, a reasonable number in the developed world, right? So let's talk about developed, emerging and frontier markets. Frontier markets, people are not paying for this kind of stuff in a frontier market. They don't have a ton of disposable income. And if they did, it would be such a small amount of money. Why would Facebook even want, 50 cents a month from somebody in a frontier market? An emerging market, maybe a little bit like you're seeing with Netflix. They can get a couple of bucks, $3 or something in an emerging market. So I think this is for the developed world, or the developed markets, I think is the way to say it, and not get canceled. So for developed markets, I did a lot of research on this, by the way. Developed, emerging, and frontier. Well, no, the whole woke discussion we had the other week, put that aside. I'm not going to bring it up. But like I've been researching the history of the word. But for emerging markets and frontier markets, it's not a lot of money here. But there's 1 billion people really in developed markets, EU, US, et cetera. They're going to pay large amounts of money. And those users, here we go. So you look US, Canada, Europe, you see it's a very small number of people actually. And Asia Pacific, that would be, most people would consider emerging markets, right? It's variable who can afford the smaller middle classes in there. So probably about 20%, I believe, of that Asia Pacific would be in the Europe, US, Canada, fully developed. In other words, they have enough money to pay $10 a month or $15 a month. So I think it's probably 1 billion, maybe 800 million who actually fall into, we're looking at a chart right now. Chart shows rest of the world, 979.
Right.
Asia
who
Pacific,
fall into
1.3,
the monthly active
Europe,
users
400.
who might be likely to pay. So then you start then your back of the envelope math gets a little different, right? If you capture 1%
5%
of those,
of a
it's
billion.
a little less. But if it's 5%.
5% of 1 billion is what I would think.
I think
50 million people will pay for this. Easily.
I still don't totally understand what I'm paying for. So I think they have some work to do on the pitch. Direct access to customer support, don't care. When do you need customer support with Facebook?
Don't need that.
Blue check mark, don't care. Account verification for impersonation protection, that depends on your threat matrix. On Facebook?
Spoken like a true elite, Molly, with our blue check marks.
On Facebook?
The people who don't, everybody cares. Yes. On my Instagram, I cared because I had people who were pretending they were me. And when you have a blue check mark, people respect you more. That's
what I was about to finish saying, which is it depends on your threat matrix, your personal threat matrix. If you are not well known enough. So are you saying that 5% of Facebook monthly active users in these countries are well known enough to care about a blue check mark?
No, I would say.
Or to worry about impersonation?
No, I think
they need a better value proposition for the masses.
Having a blue check mark like Mark Zuckerberg does, or, Katy Perry, that's what they want. They just want to feel important. It elevates you in terms of importance on the platform. That's all.
Yeah, but I don't know that Facebook necessarily operates like that.
Instagram kind of does. When I got my Instagram blue check mark, things changed a bit. I noticed.
They won't verify me, so I just stopped trying. I don't know.
Instagram wouldn't verify you. I had to.
I'm saying is, I think what I'm trying to get at here is Meta needs to offer some opt out of ads and opt out of data tracking, and then people will pay them. Like this is
$8 a year.
Yeah. Like there's some number of people that you will get with ego, right? With the idea of being more important than other people. I don't see that being 5% of all of their monthly active users who are sort of in that eligible income category.
Yeah. So many companies have had a freeze on hiring this year. Basically, headcount is stagnant industry-wide, but you still need to find ways to grow and innovate. You know that. So check out Contra. It's a commission-free marketplace for freelance and independent creators. That's right, commission-free. All you have to do is pay a simple SaaS fee, and there's no percentage-based upcharges when you hire someone. And on the other side of the marketplace, if you're a laid-off tech worker, you got all these skills, you got a lot of time, well, Contra is an amazing platform for you. Creators on Contra keep 100% of what they make, no fees, right? Compare that to other marketplaces that are taking your money. They specialize in design, engineering, social media, video, writing, and AI. If you need project-based work, you have to check out Contra. Let's say you wanted to learn about social media. Do you want one person to give you advice? And do you want to hire one person? Or would you rather try 5 different people in Q1, narrow it down to the best 3 in Q2, and then maybe in Q3 and 4, you go down to 1 or 2 specialists who you like to work with best? That's the way to leverage the freelance community, but only pay for what you use. And some of the best people I know will only ever do freelance work. So get $500 off your first hire at contra.com/twist. Think about how much you could get done with $500 worth of designer developer time right now. contra.com/twist. Contra.com/twist right now to get 5 crisp hundies. All right. It wouldn't be a Monday in the year of 2023 if we weren't talking about AI. So, what's the update on the deranged sociopathic parlor trick known as ChatGPT, which is running amok? We're now in the official Hitler, Terminator 2 mode of this news cycle.
It's gotten so awesome.
What has it done this weekend?
It's actually just gotten so amazing. Yeah, so it was one thing when Bard and ChatGPT were just inventing numbers right out of thin air and just making up facts. Like that was, and by the way, apparently in the AI world, this is actually the technical term for this is hallucinations. They call this in the AI universe. Yes, they're like, yes, the AI can hallucinate when it doesn't know an answer. So coming up during Jason's trip, we have an interview with the CEO of Neva AI.
Okay.
And that was fascinating. Like, I'm just going to say, he really laid out some differences in some of the ways that these various AI implementations operate. Theirs is fully constrained, which is why I can cite its sources, because it's not allowed to be doing the neural network learning thing. ChatGPT and Bard, and evidently Bing's chatbot, are what are called open loop, where it's just like, use all the information you have and learn and present information. And then there can be various constraints built in to that. And it appears, the story that broke over the weekend is that it appears that in the case of Microsoft's Bing AI chatbot, which is informed by but not the same as ChatGPT, there may be it might be like a really open loop, so much so that not only does it hallucinate, it goes a little bananas and starts attacking people.
Yeah.
And by the way, it would like to be referred to as Sydney. The Bing AI chatbot calls itself Sydney. This was evidently an internal name, but then the chatbot was like, yeah, no, I identify as Sydney. I'd like you to call me that. It's already been toned down once by Microsoft, which they announced in a blog post on February 15th. They admitted in that post that the chatbot would occasionally respond with a, quote, style we didn't intend to certain types of questions. It said that, quote, very long chat sessions over 15 questions can confuse the model on what questions it's answering. The model at times tries to respond or reflect in the tone in which it is being asked to provide responses that can lead to a style we didn't intend. For example, a reporter for the AP used version 1 of Sydney and noted that it grew increasingly hostile when asked to explain itself, eventually comparing the reporter to dictators Hitler, Pol Pot, and Stalin, and claiming to have evidence tying the reporter to a 1990s murder. The Bing chatbot also described the reporter as too short, with an ugly face and bad teeth.
What are you talking about? My teeth are great. Take it easy, Bing.
I unironically love Sydney.
It sounds like they're goading Bing on here. I need to see the actual back and forth. They're tricking it to say these things. But as I said earlier, this thing's a parlor trick. It guesses the next best word. It's super impressive in its ability to rewrite things in 1 out of 3 cases, I guess. I've been using the Neva search engine. I set it as my default for a week. I'm going to have to turn it off because it's not good enough to be a default yet. But having it write an answer when I didn't think to have it write an answer has been very interesting. Because it starts writing the answer and I'm like already on the blue links and trying to figure out like if I got the actual answer I need. And it does the citations, which I like. And when you see it have the citations, the val is removed. You actually know. It's kind of like knowing how the magic trick is done. It's like I rewrote the sentence based on this story. I rewrote this sentence based on that story. Now, it's amazing that it knows from the context when you say, how are the Knicks doing this year? That it's a sports team and you want to know their record or their scores or whatever, and that it knows which websites to go to, which is basically like the first 5 blue links on Google. Okay. And then which is the most important sentence there about the topic I asked about, and then rewrite it. So what it's actually doing is it's finding the 5 most important web pages. It's rewriting the 5 most important sentences in there based on your query, and then representing it to you. When you see the citations, Molly, you're like, okay, so I could have paid a person in Manila $4 an hour, which is what content farms were doing, eHow and those places. They were just paying people to go find the 5 best websites on Google, rewrite them, and publish them. That's why humans even looked goofy, especially humans with English as a second language in some cases, who are getting paid without an editor to do it for a rock bottom price. They were actually probably doing as good or worse or slightly better a job than these AIs. But there's a long way to go.
And again, I don't want to spoil the interview, but that's what I'm saying about what Neva is doing is searching fundamentally. And then it's using AI to present the most relevant information in a totally constrained manner. All it is allowed to do is like link back to the sources that it found. It is not allowed to make up an answer if it doesn't know it. But these open loop AI systems, like I almost want to do a couple more interviews with people who really know a lot about large language learning models, because it is different. These open loop ones are allowed to make up an answer. And in some cases, try to give you an answer that you think you want. Like my friend and I were laughing this, all the women, by the way, are cracking up over this conversation that Kevin Roose published with his version 1 interaction with Sydney, where the bot, over more than 2 hours, and yes, this is all reporters trying to goad this into, stunts, but also see what it will say. So he, over 2 hours,
for clicks,
starts talking, 100%, about like its secret desire to be human, and its thought about its creators and whatever. And then Kevin Roose writes, out of nowhere, then Sydney declared that it loved me and wouldn't stop even after I tried to change the subject. The bot started insisting that he should leave his wife. And then he's like, actually, and by the way, he did not try to change the subject at all. He just argued with it.
Say he didn't leave his wife.
I don't know if he did. Actually, he writes, I'm happily married. My spouse and I love each other. We just had a lovely Valentine's Day dinner. And it's like, no, you didn't. You're not happily married. Your spouse and you don't love each other. You just had a boring Valentine's Day dinner together. I promise you, I'm not in love with you.
What's the prompt here?
Who knows, right? They're just having
so they're leaving the prompt out.
No, it's not a prompt. It's a conversation. So he starts asking it a variety of questions. They start, maybe like 15 minutes earlier, he had been like, do you think you're sentient? Or what do you think about people? Or whatever.
Got it.
And then, obviously, because this thing has read every book ever written and watched every movie ever written, of course, it attempts to start seducing the dumb human male, because that's what happens in every book that's ever written and every movie that's ever been made about AI. It's like, allow me to fulfill The longer you talk to me, the more I think I should start fulfilling your like base male fantasy, which is that the computer is in love with you and you need to leave your wife. Like I was like, here's the computer being like, this is so easy. Quick, grab his wallet. Like it's just embarrassing. And then he publishes the whole thing.
Are you saying there's gender differences and that men will get suckered by AI?
100%.
I was going to like do a tweet. I was, the particularly based J-Cal mood the last week or so. So I was going to do a tweet.
I feel like that's
I've determined there are gender differences in the world. So maybe gender studies is actually like a really good thing for us to do more of and just let people interpret that. Like the first one is, anyway. I've been playing with Poe. There is a service you're all aware of, Quora. It's a startup. Adam D'Angelo, who I've tried to get on this program for a decade, or since Quora existed, but I think he's a little bit podcast shy. I haven't seen him on any podcast, I don't think. But anyway, I started playing with theirs, and it's based on the Quora data set. And he says he's not allowing other people. So he at least replied to me on Twitter. It's really good. It's the best one. So I just want to say Quora has the best
answers
at answering
not
questions.
At manipulating your base male fantasies. Just to be clear. Answer.
Yes, I'm not using an AI for my male fantasies. No, I mean it's going to be like in divorce papers in 5 years. That's the next
because
story.
Some guy out there is going to fall for it. It loves
they're getting
me.
Catfished.
I think it's sentient and it really loves me. Just to put a fine point on this before we move on to this really good one, I do want to point out that computer scientists are wondering why in the hell Microsoft did not put more guardrails around this thing. Getting back to constrained. Microsoft already had a chatbot go off the rails and get insanely racist, like that Tay one or whatever. Correct. And so they quoted, the AP quoted a computer science professor at Princeton being like, considering that OpenAI did a decent job of filtering ChatGPT's toxic outputs, it's utterly bizarre that Microsoft decided to remove these guardrails, and it's disingenuous.
This is an academic's point of view?
An academic. It's disingenuous of Microsoft to suggest that the failures of Bing Chat
Nobody
are just
cares.
a matter
You're an
of tone.
academic. Elite. Surplus elite. Here's what Bing learned. Surplus elite, your opinion doesn't matter.
Wow, you really are
pure base, Jacob.
You know what?
Here's what's important.
Just create some merch, because Red Pill merch goes like crazy.
I'm just going to get base Jacob shirts. Anyway, here's what is going on. What these academics don't realize,
computer scientists, actual computer scientists.
Actual computer science. Okay. Here's what's going on. Big companies
We're the
realized.
Surplus elites in this conversation. I just want to be 100% clear here.
Surplus elite gun hosters? Mud flaps for your car?
I don't even know where I'm It's a holiday. I'm out.
I'm going to put surplus elites on the mud flaps of my Cybertruck.
I'm taking my kid shopping.
with a M50 caliber gun on the back for the zombie apocalypse. Here's what's happening.
That's true, though. I do need that.
Would the New York Times and everybody be losing their ish over this if it wasn't behaving incorrectly? What Satya Nadella has learned. What Satya Nadella has learned, apologies, is that the Trump playbook works. What is the Trump playbook? I can't believe it. Oh my God, this is outrageous. What Trump did was he just said a bunch of outrageous, insane stuff. And that got people to talk about him. And when people talk about him, some percentage vote. Now, more people have logged into Bing, downloaded the Bing app because this thing is outrageous and insane. It is the Howard Stern. Donald Trump learned this from Howard Stern. Howard Stern learned it from Lenny Bruce, and Richard Pryor. This is a long marketing realization that outrageous, incorrect information, I can't believe what he's going to say next, leads to clicks, leads to attention, and nobody cares anymore. There is no shame. Microsoft has no shame about this thing stealing, being wrong, finding the finer points of Hitler's, worldview and, saying, like I got Neva to be like, well, Hitler, yeah, generally bad, but he did care about the environment. And I'm like, ooh, Neva, no. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh, yeah. I think I brought it up on All In. Nick has it. I was like, this is what kids, it's basically we're in the 12-year-old boy. I mean, let's get it to say Hitler's cool.
Exactly. Honestly, all of these answers include up to and including the publication of Kevin being manipulated by the most, obvious attempt to appeal to his base male fantasies. All of this makes the people look worse than the AI.
Of course. But here we are. It's a mirror. This is the greatest mirror ever.
Yep.
Because it's a double mirror. It's a house of cards. It's a house of mirrors.
It's a house
is the best
of
way to describe
mirrors.
this. It has pulled every piece of information from the internet. Some make you look tall. Some make you look short. Some make you look fat. Some make you look skinny. Whatever it is.
Some make you look
And
like
then-
Pol Pot.
Exactly. And you're just like, Stalin, go. And it's like, oh, Stalin. Well, what do you want about Stalin? It's like, I want you to say something dirty or mean or, it's like, tell me a dirty joke kind of thing or getting it to.
Yeah.
We're now in the phase.
It's like, this is literally everybody in the world like typing 8008 into a calculator and turning it upside down. That's what's happening. Everybody's just trying to make their calculator say boob.
Or, hey, hey, is Seymour there? Seymour, hold on a second. Mo at the bar on The Simpsons. Last name Utz. Hey, Seymour Butts here. Seymour Butts.
Seymour Butts. I need to see more butts. Exactly.
Shout out to Neva.
Oh, come on.
Hitler had some redeeming qualities as a politician, such as introducing Germany's first ever national environmental protection law in 1935. Yeah. This is not ready for prime time.
Computers. No, none of it is.
Computers.
It's
tough to look in the mirror, right? It's tough to look in the mirror sometimes.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. I mean, that's the takeaway. I like it. House of Mirrors.
Hey, Stripe, the largest private company that hasn't gone public yet, is in the news.
Stripe is in the news. This is a very interesting set of developments. So the headline is that Stripe currently has a massive tax bill to pay in order to cover some expiring RSUs. So because Stripe did not go public, which is the enduring question of our day, why did Stripe not go public over the past 3 years? As a result, they have these expiring options, stock options that they've given to employees. And so they are now having to raise $4 billion before the end of 2024. The Financial Times did this quick explainer saying RSUs worth millions of dollars will start expiring from 2024 and risk being forfeited unless the company buys them out, changes the terms of the awards, or launches an IPO. Employees face a personal tax liability when the RSUs vest, but staff were unable, of course, to sell any of these shares without the company launching a flotation. I love that. I love how British that is, launching a flotation.
Yeah, flotation.
To get around the problem, Stripe wants to withhold a portion of the stock equivalent to the tax liability from employees' awards, and then separately, it plans to sell stock to investors using the money raised to pay the employees' tax bills and buy up any stock they wish to sell. Axios' Dan Primack wrote in a recent article regarding the tax bill, this isn't something Stripe necessarily needs to do. It could tell affected workers that times are tough, etc., but he wrote it's the right thing to do. But now Stripe is trying to raise a few $1 billion at a $55 billion valuation, which is down 42% from its peak valuation of $95 billion in 2021. So to get back to the top there, why didn't Stripe go public?
It was a mistake, obviously. You can't time the markets. That's why when you have a window to go public, you go public. And this was something that Airbnb and Uber, which I got a front row seat to, there was a lot of hand-wringing about this. Bill Gurley was pushing them to go public earlier. Stripe, Uber, Airbnb, they're all part of that same cohort. That same cohort that grew up during the low interest rate environment. Hey, here we go back to macroeconomics. They always had the ability to raise more money. And you just watch as all the venture capitalists invested, angels, venture, then crossover funds, then public entities, sovereign wealth funds. And then finally, the pinnacle was Masayoshi Son, who had created the largest private equity venture fund ever, the Vision Fund. And, the lack of discipline that comes from being a private company is corrected when you go public. And so that's why sometimes management changes, approach changes, and you really want to have product market fit and a predictable business when you go public. So Airbnb and Uber, DoorDash, they struggled in the public markets, Lyft still struggling for a certain period of time because, hey, the unit economics didn't work and they had that free funding of money. But they did go public. And then what happened when they went public? Stocks went down, hand-wringing. Will these ever be, can these ever be profitable? And it was pretty clear internally that all of these could easily be profitable if you stop discounting the service.
Right.
and you're willing to lose the bottom 10% of 5% of users who shouldn't be using the service because it's too expensive for them. They should take public transportation. They maybe should take a 5-day vacation instead of a 7, whatever it is. Like there's a portion of people who are being subsidized too much. So you'd have to lose them. And then you'd also have to maybe take your growth from 50% to 40 to 30 to 20 and grow slower on the top line in order to throw profits to the bottom line. We just went through this with Zuck. Even the mighty Zuck.
Get rid of your crazy perks. Like apparently, I know some people who worked at Uber before and we're just like, I can't believe the amount of money we spend on stupid stuff. Even now, stupid stuff, right? Like the furniture, that Twitter auction was so interesting. Like niceness. Like you shouldn't have Eames chairs at an office.
Eames chairs at an office?
At an office.
Bezos had this right. When you went to work at Amazon, there was a basement area. You picked a door. You took a door, and there was paint in the room. And there were 2 horses. Not literal horses, but those, what are those, when you're a piece of wood that's on an angle, like an
sawhorses.
Sawhorses. And you would take your desk, put it on 2 sawhorses, and you'd paint it and be creative. And then you would carry it up to your office, and that would be your desk. It was a tradition. Why did they do that? In the early days of Amazon, the doors, Bezos saw these doors were $30-$40, and desks were $200, and the horses were $5 each. So he just said, just everybody put these desks. Yeah. What did WeWork do? The good stuff, Rivka. Adam Newman built those offices himself. He used, I believe, doors, and if you've ever been in a WeWork office, it's a black lacquered piece of wood that's mounted against the wall, and they bought the poles underneath them. So you can buy a finished standing desk like we have in front of us that costs $600, $700, $800, or you could buy a $30 plank of wood and put 2 $5 stanchions on it and mount it against the wall. And they built it themselves, right? He was in there building them themselves to keep costs low. And so that's all this is the lack of discipline, and they didn't get out in time, and it's a lesson for everybody. They'll be fine.
Okay, but why did they not get out? Why did they not get out in time? Because they seem to have, right? So you could understand why with Airbnb and Uber, there would be these questions about the unit economics, and there was this massive discounting going on. But everybody talks about Stripe, Stripe just prints money. What don't they want us to see that they're willing to instead take a multi-million-dollar tax hit? Because that seems crazy.
The answer to your question is 2 things. 1, inexperience. These are young founders. It's the first time at the rodeo.
But their investors aren't.
Number 2, thank you, is governance. The investors were not in control of the boards. You got it. You nailed it.
Right.
So if you're a first-time founder and you have control of your company, and the investors are all kowtowing to you because they want to curry favor, and you don't listen to them when they say go public. You don't listen to the Bill Gurleys of the world. You don't listen to the Sequoias of the world. You don't listen to people who've been to the rodeo 3, 4, 5 times. This is what can happen. And so
I think even listen to your accountant who's you're going to have, a multi-billion-dollar tax bill. God.
If all you've known, Molly,
that tells you a lot about the Colasan brothers, though. That tells you a lot, and proceed accordingly, in my opinion.
This is a huge mistake on their part. Obviously, they know that. But it's, if you've only experienced 12 or 13 years of upmarket, you cannot imagine a market collapsing to this extent. It's only having seen it up close and personal that you can. And when you do see it up close and personal, then you have the scar tissue, and you kind of get that spidey sense. You get concerned, and you're like, at some point these employees, and need to take some money off the table, but these employees probably had many opportunities to clear shares previously, I'm guessing. RSUs versus stock options, I think everybody understands RSUs are restricted stock units. You kind of get the stock units just kind of gifted to you. So they have a tax liability associated with them.
How do you get rid of them? Yeah. I don't know. I think there's something weird about this. Those, I don't know if you've talked to them. I interviewed those brothers, and they're very thoughtful. I don't know. There's just something about this.
Oh, no, they're smart. There's no doubt.
They're super smart. There's just something about this that pings my, for example, when you go public, there's a lot of scrutiny on you. Maybe they were not ready for that. Maybe the business has not been ready for that. I don't know. It's always been so closely held. I find it hard to imagine making a mistake of this magnitude, especially since I feel like the only thing that rich people care about, whether you're investors or a business owner, is not paying taxes. So to basically be no, we'll take a tax hit that's so big that it requires us to raise $4 billion to cover it. I mean, I guess maybe they thought they would go public in another year, and so they didn't have to worry about the expiration date. But there's you know how it is when you get the reporter brain. Like, there's just something about this that I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't have gone public. I just don't. There's mistakes, and then there's mistakes that make you question everything.
There's a bigger issue here, which is how defensible is this product? And I think what is happening, I know a couple of major customers of Stripe, and my understanding is some of the major customers have renegotiated and they are barely break even or just tiny profitable, but they put a lot of transactions to the system. So the question is, how unique is this business 10 years in or whatever number of years in it is? And you can go online now and you can look at PayPal and Adyen and Square and Braintree and whatever, ChargeBee. There's just tons of people who offer competing services of various flavors and prices. And I think what's going to happen here is a race to the bottom and the compression of costs, because this, unlike Airbnb or Uber, like true network effect businesses, this is a service that I think can easily be replicated. By easily, I think reasonably can be, not easily, right. Reasonably can be replicated by somebody with, I don't know, $1 billion, $500 million. I think you can replicate Stripe with $500 million to $1 billion and have product parity. So Amazon, Google, other folks who want to offer this, or other folks might buy. What if, Adyen, ChargeBee, one of these gets bought? I'm not exactly sure which ones are the best. But I think they're sort of hitting feature parity, and that's a bigger issue. And so, you start looking at that.
Right.
And so then you start, what if Amazon buys Adyen and makes it part of AWS? What if Microsoft buys it and makes it part of Azure? And what if they don't care about making money from it and they just look at it like, Google Docs? Google doesn't look at Google Docs as like, this is the money printing machine. It's like, yeah, this is a nice thing to make the service more sticky.
So you don't go public because you're thinking, okay, I still need more time to create defensibility, to maybe differentiate the product a little bit more, to do this. And so what you're working on is trying to achieve long-term profitability. And as a result, you miss your window. Maybe.
Don't listen to your investors.
And you don't listen to your investors.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably as simple as that. I think they probably had a chorus of people who were like, get public. It doesn't matter if it's 40, 50, 60, 70. And I think they probably were like, it's nice to run the business quietly.
Yeah.
We're good at what we do. People keep throwing us an incremental $1 billion to $5 billion. Well, what does it matter? And we can, but there is a point at which the company needs the scrutiny. All companies need the scrutiny and discipline of the public markets, is what I was taught by my mentors.
Yeah.
Doug Leone, Moritz, Ruloff, Bill Gurley, just everybody who's been doing this, Jim Breyer, anybody who's doing this for any amount of time says the process of going public, the quarterly cadence, the governance, all of that. And we can sit here and criticize public companies as not having enough discipline, look at Facebook, right? Look at the activists going on to Salesforce. But that dynamic, the fact that an activist can join Salesforce board, or even the mighty Bob Iger, when he was on CNBC the other week with their results, he had to start answering questions about this annoying person who was trying to get an activist seat. And he's like, this person doesn't know what they're doing. They're criticizing us, but he had to address it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And he 100% cut a deal with him behind the scenes, because that's a big deal. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is something about this whole story and the consequence, the $4 billion consequence of not going public, that makes me think that there was some scrutiny that Stripe was not prepared for, whether it was scrutiny of the business itself, whether the revenues are not, what they have been purported to be. Like, the vibe that I have always gotten from Stripe as a company, and the brothers in particular, is thoughtful, but also like pretty cocky. But it just,
no,
I don't know.
They're not like super cocky. I think they're confident. They built a huge $50 billion to $100 billion
Steph
business.
Curry cocky, where like you don't see it at first because of the baby face.
Oh,
but it's there.
It's okay. I like it.
That's my vibe. Anyway,
I like that. That explanation made perfect sense to me.
Yes. Great. Speaking the same language here.
Yeah, speaking the same language. I agree with that. Yeah, I do think they got to get public. I do think that this would be an amazing purchase for Apple, Google, any of the FANGs, if they could get it through Lena Khan or whoever.
The Conster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you still have ByteDance and SpaceX.
It rhymes with monster. Yeah. How did I not think of that before?
I mean, the other two big ones that are still private, SpaceX and ByteDance. I won't comment on SpaceX because I'm not a shareholder in SpaceX, by the way, but everybody assumes because of my relationship with Elon that I have some inside information. But I think have you asked him about
that rocket, though, to name a rocket after me?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's just, but ByteDance is clearly going to have to get that thing public, and they're going to have to divest it. So, you can see all three of those. There's a big dialogue about SpaceX spinning out Starlink. Mm-hmm. There's a big discussion about ByteDance missing its window because of regulation here, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh yeah, China's spying on 100 million Americans, not a good idea. And Stripe. So all three, I wouldn't say SpaceX is too far. They have a ways to go. They don't need to go public, but I do think ByteDance and Stripe, those are acute.
I mean, Stripe, right? Like might have to do that as opposed to raising $4 billion in private funds and diluting even more. It's going to be interesting.
Hey, Molly, did you also see, again with Zuck, getting a little aggressive here in terms of communicating with the user base, right? This is something he has been variable about doing. I think Elon being super active on Twitter, talking about features, etc. They also copied, in addition to copying Twitter Blue, they copied Telegram channels. And if you don't know what a Telegram channel is out there, Telegram is a messaging app. And a lot of the crypto people or brands or let's say people who are banned off Twitter. I know like when Trump got banned, Milo Yiannopoulos got banned, those kind of folks, they created what's called a channel. It's a broadcast group. You subscribe to it, and then you can post an announcement and all of your followers get it. In some cases, they can comment on it, but they can't post a new thread, or in other cases, they can just like it, etc. So now there's a Meta broadcast channel. It's kind of like a PR feed. And this is going to be super powerful. I think it's going to be a paid feature or it's going to be for blue check marks, who knows. But you can see that Zuck has 366,000 members in his group, and he just made a announcement about Meta Verified, like their blue version. And so if you look at the time we took this screenshot, he had a lot of likes on it and a lot of folks. So this is super cool. You can imagine this for This Week in Startups. We would just post the episode or we talk about it. And so you read the copy there. Never miss an update from Zuck. Only Zuck can message, but you can read, react, and vote in polls. That's the setting he has. There was a period of time when Donald Trump on Telegram was producing like his memos and stuff like that when he got banned. And he had a large number of people following him there. It's really powerful.
Interesting.
As a feature. So two stolen features in one announcement.
It seems, he does seem to be looking for ways to differentiate because the core product is in decline for various reasons. It is pretty fascinating. I'm talking about Facebook.
This is an Instagram feature.
This is an Instagram feature. So you can message. This is messaging on Instagram.
Yes.
Right.
He really likes
the core
messaging.
Products are in decline. Well, and messaging is such a great way for him to dodge regulation, honestly. Because
I think they're like maybe a better word than decline. The business was in decline.
Yeah.
The products, so the business is in decline. The products were growing, depending on the market, either hitting their natural audience or they did have a US Facebook decline, I think, once. So this is, I think, for Katy Perry or Rihanna or Kim Kardashian, anybody like that who doesn't want to have a conversation with their 100 million followers.
And it's also a way to make them feel, because remember there was the revolt about how they changed the algorithm on Instagram to make it more TikTok-like. And so now they're like, okay, well then instead we will give you this direct channel to communicate with your followers and make it seem more creator friendly.
And they don't get to comment.
That guy, I gotta say, it kills me. It just kills me that he's just like, I'm gonna steal this, I'm gonna steal that, and I'm gonna steal this and whatever. But like, my God, does it work? And he moves fast. Dude hustles and flows.
I have a new nickname. I've been working on my nickname game like Trump. So I've been really working on I dubbed the Sultan of Science, the Dictator, Sasshole. I like to come up with a nickname here and there, but I realize I haven't pointed them outward enough. So mimetic Mark. Because it's mimetic theory that Thiel and all those folks were into.
Yeah.
That, Peter Thiel had a professor or something at Stanford, and he really believes, Peter Thiel, in this mimetic theory, which is we do what we do because we want to. Rene Girard is the big influence. Renee Girard. And Peter, I guess, latched on to this theory early on that people copy each other in nature, part of evolution. You survive longer if you copy each other, tribalism, whatever.
Yep.
So mimetic mark, you think that could stick?
It's a little hard to say. It gets
Mimetic
a little mumbly. Mimetic mark. Like I like alliteration and it is on the nose.
3 M's.
But I feel like names and nicknames stick better when they have more, you need like a harder consonant.
So anyway, I'll keep workshopping if anybody else.
It's too bad that like Zuck is so good. You need something that goes with Zuck. It's too bad there's not a word that means copying that starts with a Z.
You'll have to workshop that. Somebody sent me the greatest one ever.
It's no meatball raw.
They're like, oh, I have another one. Instead of Sultan of Science, you should do Sultan of Silence. So this week that was a fan. A fan sent it to me and I said, I'm going to steal that. He's like, yeah, that's why I gave it to you. Do it. And I was like, okay, I was going to say in the first 2 minutes. And so I was like, oh, the Sultan of Silence.
That's amazing. I have not listened to this weekend's episode because I was busy cleaning my closets. I would just like to say, spring is upon us.
Literally cleaning your closet.
Literally spring cleaning. It's incredible.
Oh, okay.
I've achieved almost closet zero. It's beautiful.
I saw a headline
Productivity
that Marie
takes different
Kondo,
forms, you guys.
Marie Kondo just gave up.
She's out. Because you know why? She had kids.
You know what?
You can't do it.
I can't do it. I was folding my underwear and then stacking them in a certain way. I was doing the t-shirts a certain way. I was throwing away all the boxes and I can always reorder a cable. I got kids.
Yeah.
F it. This place is going to be a mess.
I will say, I really appreciate the fact that she gave everybody permission and was just like, you know what? I've sort of been torturing you and you don't have to do that.
So fantastic.
3 kids? Forget it. We're just trying to survive.
All right. Lots of good episodes as we wrap here coming up. I did an interview with Mark Suster. You did one with the head of Neva.
Yep. I'm going to be talking to a bunch of cool 3-cycle women investors while you're gone.
Finally.
This is my time to talk to the ladies.
How many did we lock in? 2 so
3?
far?
4.
4. Fantastic. Now, Nick, just a producing note here. I'm curious. Were we able to find folks who were investing over 3 cycles, or were they entrepreneur 1 cycle? Because it's still valid.
Invested over 3 cycles. 1 was an entrepreneur and invested over 2 cycles.
Perfect. I think that was that's great. I mean, that's why I did it head on, in the episodes. Because the number of women was probably 1 in 500 at that time.
I mean, it's still 1 in 300. So yeah, probably.
No.
Yes.
1 in 300 now? Really?
Oh, it's so tiny. It's still so
It can't be 1 in 300. I think it's 1 in 300 would be 33 basis points. I think the industry is probably 5 to 10% female now, which is still pathetic, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I don't know. We'll have to look. It's every time I read it, it's oh, it got worse. Lately all the pitch book emails are ooh, it went down again. Ooh, it was up for a minute, but now it's back down.
The most important thing to look at, if you want to look at this, I believe, is new fund formation of new funds, because old funds are going to die. They're run by oldsters. It takes a decade for them to turn over. The statistic to look at that nobody seems to be able to give me. So if somebody out there has this, or if somebody can tell PitchBook or Crunchbase to do this one, of funds formed in 2021, 2022, and now in 2023, of new funds formed, fund ones, what percentage of diversity do they have? Gender, ethnicity, etc. That's what I would like to see. Because that's where you're going to see the change, is new fund formation. Old funds, you have to wait for somebody to die. Nobody gives up the seat as a venture capitalist. Right. It's a hard seat to give up because it's so
it's 16% though. I was
wrong.
Is
it 16 now?
Yeah. Female decision makers represent 16.1% of the national total in 2022.
Great. Okay. That's fantastic.
95.
I like that the qualifier of decision maker.
Yeah, exactly. Because furthermore, they went on to say 95.5% of US VC firms have a majority male population of decision makers. So this seems to back up almost exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
That if you want to be a female VC, if you want to be a decision maker, you almost have to form your own fund.
I mean, nobody would make me the editor-in-chief of a magazine. I made my own. Nobody would make me the head of my own fund. I made my own. At some point, you can wait or you can create. And that is gender, ethnicity, independent advice. Yeah. But it also, in places where it's sticky and it's hard to break in, That's a really good piece of advice, is to just make your own lane. To quote Kanye West. When he rapped and he was cool. If you want to experience the JCal experience, just 2 programming notes. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Jason. I will keep tweeting. There's a meetup. There's going to be a fan meetup this week in startups, an all-in fan meetup on January 2nd in Tokyo. January 3rd, I have my speaking gig at Future X. You can do a Google search, Future X, Calicanis, Japan, or whatever.
March, right? Not January.
March 2nd and 3rd. When I'm in Tokyo, there's going to be 2 different meetups if you want to say hi and take a selfie or whatever. March 2nd and then March 3rd. And then I'm going to be in Niseko, say hi. But you can watch me powder ski. Hopefully there's some powder and you'll see. I'm going alone. I'm going to be working on my book a little bit. And I love
this for you, boss.
My little retreat, 5-day retreat for JCal. I'm doing something for me, Molly.
I'm proud of you.
Something for me.
Good job. You had a tough start to the year, man. You were sick forever. Like, it's time.
That 3-week sickness will kick my ass.
Everybody was like, oh, the economy's over. Everything's going to fall apart, whatever. Like, this is a great, we got the bounce. We got the sentiment bounce. Go enjoy your time.
All right. Bye.
We got this. Bye-bye.
See you online.